Animal migration is an important aspect of the survival of many species. In this video, we will explore the different types of migration, including seasonal, altitudinal, nomadic, irruptive, and diurnal. We will also examine specific examples of animals that migrate, such as monarch butterflies, wildebeest, Arctic terns, humpback whales, and salmon. Understanding the mechanisms behind migration is also important. Genetics, environmental cues, navigation, and physiological changes all play a role in the migration of animals. Advantages and disadvantages of migration exist. Access to resources and avoidance of harsh conditions are advantages, but increased risk of predation or injury and energy expenditure are disadvantages. Human activities can impact animal migration in many ways, such as habitat destruction, climate change, pollution, hunting, and poaching. Conservation efforts, such as protected habitats, wildlife corridors, collaborative international efforts, and education and awareness campaigns, are crucial in protecting migratory species. Finally, we will explore future research directions in migration, including the use of new technologies to track migration patterns, investigation of the role of epigenetics in migration, understanding the effects of climate change on migration, and exploration of the role of social and cultural factors in migration. Migration is an essential part of the survival of many species. In this video, we will discuss the different types of migration, including seasonal, altitudinal, nomadic, irruptive, and diurnal migration. Seasonal migration is perhaps the most well-known type of migration, where animals travel to different locations depending on the season. For example, birds may migrate from their breeding grounds in the summer to their wintering grounds in the south during the colder months. Altitudinal migration is another type, where animals move up and down mountains depending on the season. This type of migration is seen in animals such as elk and deer, which migrate to higher elevations in the summer for food and cooler temperatures. Nomadic migration is when animals move in search of food and water, without a specific destination in mind. This type of migration is common in many species, including wildebeest and zebras in the African savanna. Eruptive migration occurs when animals move in large numbers due to extreme weather conditions, such as drought or flooding. This type of migration is seen in animals such as caribou in the Arctic. Finally, diurnal migration is when animals move during the day, such as birds that migrate during daylight hours. Understanding the different types of migration is essential in studying the behavior and survival of migratory species. Join us in the next part of this video as we explore examples of migratory animals. Animal migration is a fascinating phenomenon, and there are countless examples of species that undertake incredible journeys each year. Let's take a closer look at some of the most well-known examples of animal migration. First up, the monarch butterfly. These beautiful insects travel up to 3,000 miles each year to reach their wintering grounds in Mexico. Along the way, they navigate using a combination of the sun's position and the Earth's magnetic field. Next, we have the wildebeest, who are famous for their annual migration across the Serengeti. This spectacle involves over 1 million animals traveling in search of fresh grazing lands. It's a tough journey, and many wildebeest don't make it due to predation, disease, or exhaustion. Arctic terns are another migratory species that undertake a remarkable journey each year. These birds travel from their breeding grounds in the Arctic to the Antarctic and back again, covering a distance of around 44,000 miles. It's the longest migration of any bird on Earth. Moving on to marine species, humpback whales are known for their annual migration between their feeding grounds in the polar regions and their breeding grounds in tropical waters. These journeys can cover distances of up to 5,000 miles, and are essential for the survival of the species. Finally, we have salmon, who are famous for their epic upstream migrations to reach their spawning grounds. This is a tough journey, as the fish must swim against the current, leap over obstacles, and avoid predators. But it's a journey that is essential for the survival of the species. These are just a few examples of the incredible journeys undertaken by migratory species each year. By studying these animals and their migrations, we can gain a deeper understanding of the natural world and the challenges that these animals face. Mechanisms of migration. Animal migration is a remarkable phenomenon that has been studied extensively by scientists. In order to understand how animals migrate, it is important to explore the mechanisms behind this behavior. There are several factors that contribute to migration, including genetics, environmental cues, navigation, and physiological changes. Genetics play a significant role in migration patterns. Some animals are born with an innate ability to migrate, while others learn the behavior from their parents. Research has shown that certain genes are responsible for migratory behavior, and that these genes are passed down from one generation to the next. Environmental cues also play a crucial role in migration. Animals use a variety of cues to navigate their way across long distances, including the position of the sun and stars, the Earth's magnetic field, and even the smell of the air. Some animals are able to detect changes in the Earth's magnetic field, allowing them to navigate with incredible accuracy. Navigation is another important factor in migration. Many animals have evolved sophisticated navigational abilities, including the use of landmarks, the position of the sun and stars, and even the Earth's magnetic field. Birds, for example, are known to use a combination of landmarks and the position of the sun to navigate their way across long distances. Finally, physiological changes play a role in migration. Many animals undergo changes in their physiology in order to prepare for migration. For example, birds may undergo changes in their digestive system to store more fat, allowing them to sustain long flights without stopping to eat. Some animals may also increase their red blood cell count in order to better oxygenate their muscles during flight. Understanding the mechanisms behind migration is crucial for conservation efforts, as it allows us to better understand the needs of migratory species and develop effective strategies for protecting them. By studying the genetics, environmental cues, navigation, and physiological changes associated with migration, we can gain valuable insights into this fascinating behavior and ensure the survival of these incredible animals. In this section, we will discuss the advantages and disadvantages of animal migration. Migration can provide animals with access to new resources such as food, water, and breeding grounds. It also allows them to avoid harsh conditions such as extreme temperatures, drought, or predators. However, migration can also be disadvantageous for animals as it increases the risk of predation or injury and requires a significant amount of energy expenditure. One of the most significant advantages of migration is access to resources. For example, birds that migrate to different areas during the breeding season can find new sources of food and water. In turn, this can increase their chances of survival and reproduction. Additionally, some animals that migrate can also access new breeding grounds that are less crowded or have more suitable conditions for reproduction. Another advantage of migration is the ability to avoid harsh conditions. For example, many animals migrate to avoid extreme temperatures or drought. By moving to a more suitable location, they can increase their chances of survival and reduce their exposure to dangerous conditions. However, migration also has its disadvantages. One of the most significant disadvantages is the increased risk of predation or injury. Many animals that migrate must travel long distances, often through unfamiliar territories, which can increase their exposure to predators. Additionally, migration can also be physically demanding and can cause injury or exhaustion to animals that are not adequately prepared for the journey. Finally, migration also requires a significant amount of energy expenditure. Animals must use energy to travel long distances, find food and water along the way, and establish new territories. This can be particularly challenging for animals that are already struggling to survive, such as those that are facing habitat loss or climate change. In conclusion, while migration can provide animals with access to new resources and allow them to avoid harsh conditions, it also has its disadvantages, including an increased risk of predation or injury and a significant amount of energy expenditure. It is crucial to understand these advantages and disadvantages when studying animal migration to better protect and conserve these species. In this section, we will discuss the advantages and disadvantages of animal migration. Migration is a complex behavior that has evolved over millions of years and has allowed many species to adapt and survive in changing environments. However, migration also comes with both costs and benefits. One of the main advantages of migration is access to resources. Animals that migrate to new habitats often have access to fresh food sources and breeding opportunities that they wouldn't have otherwise. This can help them survive and thrive in harsh environments where resources are limited. Another advantage of migration is avoidance of harsh conditions. Many animals migrate to avoid extreme weather conditions such as freezing temperatures, droughts, or floods. By moving to more favorable climates, they can reduce the risk of injury or death from extreme weather events. However, migration also has some disadvantages. One major disadvantage is increased risk of predation or injury. During migration, animals may have to travel long distances, crossing difficult terrain and encountering predators. This puts them at greater risk of being injured or killed. Energy expenditure is another disadvantage of migration. The long journeys that animals undertake during migration require a lot of energy. Animals must spend significant amounts of time and resources to build up the energy stores needed for migration. This can be a major drain on their resources and may limit their ability to reproduce or defend themselves. In conclusion, while migration can be an essential part of an animal's survival strategy, it is not without costs. Understanding the advantages and disadvantages of migration is critical for conservation efforts and managing human impacts on migratory species. Conservation of migratory species. Animals that migrate face many challenges during their journey, including changes in climate, habitat loss, and increased human activity. In order to protect these species and ensure their survival, conservation efforts are crucial. There are several ways in which conservation can help protect migratory species. Protected habitats. One way to conserve migratory species is to create and maintain protected habitats. These habitats can provide a safe haven for animals during their journey, as well as a place to rest and refuel. National parks, wildlife refuges, and other protected areas can also provide a buffer against the negative impacts of human activity. Wildlife corridors. Another important conservation strategy is the creation of wildlife corridors. These are areas of habitat that connect different protected areas, allowing animals to move between them safely. By creating these corridors, we can help ensure that migratory species have access to the resources they need to survive. Collaborative international efforts. Conservation efforts are most effective when they are collaborative and international in scope. Many migratory species travel across multiple countries during their journey, so it is important for countries to work together to protect these animals. This can include the creation of international agreements and treaties to protect migratory species, as well as collaborations between researchers and conservationists across borders. In addition to these conservation efforts, education and awareness campaigns are also important. By raising awareness about the importance of migratory species and the threats they face, we can help inspire people to take action to protect these animals. Overall, conservation is key to protecting migratory species and ensuring their survival. Through protected habitats, wildlife corridors, and collaborative international efforts, we can work together to preserve these incredible animals for generations to come. In the future, new technologies will play an important role in the study of animal migration. Researchers are exploring ways to use new tracking technologies to map migration patterns and investigate the role of epigenetics in migration. They are also working to better understand the effects of climate change on migration and exploring the role of social and cultural factors in migration. One area of particular interest is the use of drones and other remote sensing technologies to track migratory animals. By collecting data on the movement patterns of animals, researchers can better understand how migration is affected by environmental changes such as habitat loss and climate change. Another area of research is the investigation of epigenetics, which refers to changes in gene expression that are not caused by changes in the DNA sequence itself. Researchers are exploring the role of epigenetic changes in the timing and coordination of migration in different species. Finally, researchers are working to better understand the effects of climate change on migration. As the climate changes, animals may need to adapt their migration patterns in order to find suitable habitats and resources. Understanding how animals are responding to these changes can help inform conservation efforts and protect migratory species. Overall, continued research on animal migration is crucial for understanding the survival of species and developing effective conservation strategies. By studying the mechanisms of migration and the impacts of human activity on migratory animals, we can work to protect these important species for generations to come. In recent years, there has been growing concern about the impact of human activity on animal migration, particularly in the Anthropocene era. Human activity has caused significant changes to the environment, including habitat destruction, pollution, and the spread of invasive species. These changes can affect the ability of animals to migrate successfully, and can have negative impacts on their survival. Leatherback sea turtles, for example, are one species that faces many challenges during their migration. These turtles travel thousands of miles between their nesting sites and foraging areas, facing a number of human-made obstacles along the way. Plastic pollution in the ocean can be deadly for sea turtles, and they are also at risk of being accidentally caught in fishing nets. Bar-headed geese are another migratory species facing challenges during their journey. These birds are known for their impressive altitude records during migration, flying at elevations of up to 29,000 feet. However, they must contend with harsh weather conditions and changes in altitude during their journey. Additionally, the geese's habitat is being impacted by human activities, which could affect their ability to complete their migration successfully. Gray whales are also facing challenges during their migration. These whales travel long distances from their summer feeding grounds in the Arctic to their winter breeding grounds in warmer waters. Human activities like shipping and oil drilling can have negative impacts on their habitat and migration patterns. Overall, it's important to study and understand the unique challenges faced by migratory species like these, and to work towards conservation efforts that can help protect them. We can take action by reducing our use of single-use plastics, supporting sustainable fishing practices, and advocating for responsible land use and protection of wildlife habitats. Migration is not only important for the survival of animal species, but it also holds a significant place in human societies. Throughout history, humans have developed deep cultural connections to the migratory animals around them. In many cultures, migratory animals are associated with folklore, mythology, and spiritual beliefs. For example, in North America, indigenous people have long celebrated the return of salmon to their rivers as a symbol of the cycle of life and the importance of interconnectedness. In many African cultures, the migration of wildebeest is considered a powerful symbol of rebirth and renewal. The Arctic tern, which migrates between the Arctic and the Antarctic each year, is considered a messenger of the gods in many Nordic and Inuit cultures. Furthermore, migratory animals have played a significant role in traditional hunting and fishing practices, as well as in the development of spiritual and religious beliefs. The annual migration of caribou, for example, has long been a critical part of the subsistence practices of many indigenous communities in North America. The migration of birds has also been associated with the changing of the seasons and has been celebrated in many cultural traditions. Overall, the cultural significance of animal migration highlights the deep connection between humans and the natural world. It underscores the importance of understanding and protecting migratory species, not only for their ecological importance but also for their role in our cultural heritage. Migration and its impact on human health is a topic that has received increasing attention in recent years. The migration of animals can have both positive and negative effects on human health. For example, the migration of certain animals can lead to the transmission of diseases, such as the spread of avian influenza by migratory birds. In addition, climate change, which can alter migration patterns, can also affect food and water security, which can in turn have negative impacts on human health. However, migration can also have positive impacts on human health. For example, the consumption of fish that migrate to different regions can provide important nutritional benefits. In addition, migratory animals can provide ecosystem services, such as pollination, that are important for human health and well-being. It is important to understand the impact of animal migration on human health in order to develop effective policies to protect both human health and migratory species. This can involve measures such as monitoring the health of migratory animals, implementing disease control programs, and promoting sustainable practices that support both human health and the health of migratory species. By working to protect migratory species and the ecosystems they rely on, we can help to promote the health and well-being of both animals and humans. One significant impact of human activity on animal migration is changes in land use and habitat fragmentation. As human populations continue to grow, natural habitats are being destroyed and fragmented, making it more difficult for animals to move from one area to another. This can lead to a loss of genetic diversity, as well as increased competition for resources. Another impact of human activity on animal migration is the spread of invasive species. Invasive species can disrupt ecosystems and displace native species, making it more difficult for animals to find suitable habitats and food sources. This can also increase the risk of disease transmission and predation. Technological advances in tracking and monitoring migratory animals have allowed scientists to study migration patterns in greater detail. However, these advances can also have negative impacts on animal migration. For example, noise pollution from boats and planes can disrupt the natural cues that animals use for navigation, making it more difficult for them to find their way. In order to mitigate the negative impacts of human activity on animal migration, it is important to take steps to protect natural habitats and reduce pollution. Conservation efforts such as protected habitats and wildlife corridors can help to ensure that animals are able to move freely and find suitable habitats. Collaborative international efforts are also important in protecting migratory species, as animals may move across borders and require protection in multiple countries. Overall, it is clear that human activity has significant impacts on animal migration, and it is important to continue studying these impacts in order to protect the survival of migratory species. By taking steps to reduce our impact on the environment, we can help to ensure that animals are able to migrate successfully and maintain healthy populations for generations to come.